All right, everyone. Hello. Hello. Welcome back, I guess. Been on a brief hiatus. Will have been before this show recorded anyways. Due to, holidays and life and everything and work. Speaking of work, there goes my phone. But very excited to be back today for the design event. And I have a guest today, Alexander, who is uh director of operations at Cobalt Press, among many other hats that he wears. And Alexander, actually, why don't you just introduce yourself a little? Everyone always does this better than I do.
Okay, I'm T. Alexander Stangroom. As Julie said, I'm the Director of Operations at Cobalt Press, which, if I'm not writing or illustrating or editing, I'm normally doing the thing or associated with the thing and making all of our books happen. I'm also a freelance writer and game designer.
Yeah, you're in the
Um,
industry, so we all are.
yes. Um, and a professional GM as well.
Quite the share of things that you do. But in this case, we will be talking about some of your freelance work. 'Cause you recently worked on the newest Wizards of the Coast book, Strixhaven, which is a Magic Gathering crossover book for people who are like, what the that word? Um, and you worked a little bit on the with the uh, relationships, right?
Yes, that's correct. For those of you who don't know, Strixhaven: A Curriculum of Chaos is a new book by Dungeons and Dragons. It is a magical university, ostensibly from a Magic Gathering world. However, you can place this university in any campaign setting that you're playing, be it Forgotten Realms or Eberron. There's a number of options for characters, but the thing that I was working on was the relationship rules and then the NPCs that plug directly into that.
Yeah, and we get some really cool NPCs. I know, like some of the artwork that's been released already in the previews for like the Owlin and stuff. You get to find characters like that. So I am super excited to see all of those. So, um, the relationship system is kind of at the core of the new Strixhaven book because it's very focused on role play, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's not just a collection of adventures that the party go on and do the thing and beat the bad guy. Um, we the lead designer, Amanda Hammond, wanted to make this more of an organic sort of interaction. So because of that, and the fact that you're at university, you're going to be interacting with lots of people outside of the party.
Yes.
So be it these people are members of societies that you've joined, like the Strixhaven live action role-playing society, or maybe they work at one of the locations that you can earn money from, like Fire Jolt Cafe. But you'll encounter these characters again and again throughout the adventure, and then it's building up a rapport with them or a rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
And with the relationship rules, there's actually a mechanical effect from that.
Okay, so in that sense, it's kind of like a lot of a lot of the video game RP games where like I'm thinking Dragon Age Inquisition was probably one of my favorites of that variety, where you can really gain some like loving relationships, or you can get the animosity of someone by asking them the same question over and over again, wherein they repeatedly say no, they are not interested. They become a little upset with you.
There is that. So, depending on how you interact with these people, you can gain relationship points or lose relationship
Hmm.
points with them that will turn them into a friend or a rival, and then that will have a mechanical effect. So you can fall out with people, and it won't be anything profound. You won't sort of break your character by doing so, but there will be some fun little role playing,
Right.
throughout the
You won't have
adventure.
broken your character, you'll have broken that link towards whatever goal that person could help you with, or whatever, skill they have, or anything like that. So I just kind of want to backtrack a little bit for people who maybe don't play Magic the Gathering and aren't as familiar with Strixhaven. Like you said, it is a magical university, um, and it has the 5 different colleges that you can join. There have been some excellent YouTube um, orientation videos that Amanda has put out explaining some of those. So you'll get to do a lot of the typical university stuff, choosing the school you want to be in. Or for you, I don't know. I don't know what mechanic we're using for that yet. I do not have the book yet in my little paws. Otherwise, I would hold it up and show you. Here is the lack of book. I'll have it very soon. Timing. But yes, you could join any of the 5 schools. So that is Silverquill, Prismari, Witherbloom, Lorehold, and Quandrix. Um, so uh, those are enemy color faction sets for people who are familiar with mastering terms. Um, but that really kind of gives it an interesting dynamic fact that they're, kind of enemy colors. So you've got, uh, dueling kind of magic types within each of which kind of give them a lot of interesting takes on their own, and give them their own very interesting types of magic. And I have a entirely wrong thing right now to tell you what each does, because I'm prepared. But no, honestly, I was recently scarves for all of the strict while I was at a Magic the Gathering tournament, and I could not decide when I would be. And I did not want to buy all 5 of them. Considered it though. Definitely, it's
Well,
definitely a consideration.
I was going to say, depending on your mood on the day, sure, you just wear a different scarf.
Right, and that's where I was like, oh, I gosh, don't know. I mean, I could have just gone based on like,
Mm.
um, because they are obviously different bold, bright colors, or in the crystal, black and white. So kind of, it matches everything.
Yeah.
Um,
And the NPCs are spread around all 5 of
okay.
the colleges
All 5.
to make sure that if your character has a philosophical disagreement with one of the colleges, you're not necessarily forced to encounter people like that and build a relationship with them if you just don't want to.
That's the important question. Do you have a favorite college?
I think based on what they represent, I think I would probably be Silver Quill because it's entirely about the use of language and eloquence and actually using language to further your own ends.
I think that is I think that makes sense. Yeah.
I think for any sort of game designer or writer, I think you're probably going to be in Silver Quill.
Maybe part of the time. Uh I mean, like you could not um I could also, spell things correctly. And then therefore bring up a page that I actually want. It tells me about the different classes so I can tell everyone else here. Right? That seems too easy. Um, oh my goodness. Why? I don't know. I had this up yesterday and now I've lost everything. But yeah. Uh yeah. I'm just mostly excited for the owl and this point. Um
Yes, the owl in the picture that's been shown a lot, the scruffy looking one, he's actually one of the NPCs.
yeah, I think I've got the looking below here available. Cause they had a preview of that for Indie Celebration. Let me pop that up real big so
Mm.
everyone can see that. And so, the artwork there, of course, by Ekaterina Burmak. So the Owlin. distant kin of the giant owls from the Feywild. Come in varying sizes. Small, you can be, kind of like they've done with the Harengon, where you have a variety of sizes. And they are majestic, or in this case, scruffy looking boy. Which, being
Well, there's a reason for that because that is actually, as I said, one of the NPCs. He's not just an owlin; he's the owlin NPC, and his name is Javanesh, which I don't think they've Javanesh Stoutclaw, which I don't think they've actually said on any of the announcements. But he works as a bouncer in the tavern, which is why he's one of the reasons why he's a little scruffy.
one of the reasons.
Well, he's these characters are still teenagers,
Yes.
so he's still got some juvenile plumage that's not quite gone. So some of the scruffiness is related to the fact that
His little feathers, yeah.
He's got some juvenile feathering on his adult feathers, and it won't smooth down.
All right, I finally found the page that I want because I only have 14 open that I've bookmarked. None of them were what I wanted. But yes, so Lorehold, like you said, history buffs, explorers, College of Archaeomancy, um, venture into tombs to unearth artifacts and use magic to summon spirits who can fill that forgotten knowledge. Use the deep lore. Um, Again, yes, writers, creative types, and that. Prismari is the College of Elemental Arts. Unfeathered creatives or meticulous artists who protect their textures. I feel creative types could also fall that.
It's the theatre kids, it's the band kids.
I identified a lot with that one. Also, it is bright. Prismari, I believe, is like the lime green and bright blue. I might have that backwards.
It's Prismari, I think it's blue and red.
I remembered it was bright. Yes, blue red. You're right. Quandrix, the College of Neuromancy, nature mathematicians, seek to understand the around them and build those. They stand between theory and the natural world, according to this, which makes me feel like they stand as a balance. That's not what that means at all. Silverkill, the College of Eloquence, quick-witted, charismatic mate, weapon as words. Bards. Not necessarily just bards, but that'll be what a lot of people think of. Wither Bloom, the College of Essence Studies. Study plants, all manners, how to protect, enhance, and exploit. So, really, there's a lot of stuff to do in all of them. And like you said, the character options, NPC are spread out across all of those and outside of the colleges themselves. So there's really a lot of opportunity to not role play like your day to day learning for magic, which is an option for all classes, not just typical magic wielders, is my understanding.
Yes, the adventure will support characters of all classes because otherwise you'd end up with an all wizard table, which would be fun but very strange.
You've never played an all wizard table?
I would imagine a lot of people haven't. I mean, I've been playing for 20 plus years, so yes.
I mean, I've been playing for less years than that. What year is it? We've just established in the pre-show that time math is hard.
Yeah.
The I don't know. 12, 13? I don't know. Somewhere between 12 and 15 years I've been playing. But yes, I have also numerous times played at a table with all wizards, or the occasional warlock and sorcerer, which is just a better wizard. I don't like wizards. There's too much to learn.
See, I like that. I like having lots and lots and lots of options, and then
Right.
picking the correct set of options for the next day's adventure.
But you can do that also. Um, other, and I didn't have to go to school for that. I just know
Is it real magic though?
it is real
You
magic.
just, yeah.
I inherited this magic. I was born to it. You know, yeah, it is real magic. There's parking lot. um, okay, so outside of the, without going, into too much detail and everything, outside of the relation, what is something that you're like most looking forward to people experiencing from the Strixhaven book?
So not how the relationship system actually sort of plugs into it, but in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the characters that the people are role playing with, because these NPCs are they're dotted throughout the adventures across the 4 academic years,
Mm-hmm.
is the fact that for a lot of players, they're going to potentially see representations of themselves for the first time in a Dungeons and Dragons book. One of the things that I was very mattered a lot to me was actually making sure that there was enough representation and diversity throughout these characters, so that because universities are like that.
Yes, that's very true. It's kind of,
Yes.
for a lot of people, it's actually their first experience stepping out of their comfort zone into a bigger area where like you meet people who aren't like you for the first time. I know
Yes.
I grew up in the rural southern south small town. Everyone looked like, well, not entirely in my case. I did grow up in West Tennessee, and there's a pretty um, decent split on black versus white at least, but hadn't really experienced any other cultures until I went to university, and all of a sudden, there were um, queer people, there were um, Asian people, Hispanic people, Arab people. Like it was like all of a sudden it was like there was an entire world, and I still hadn't left my state. But yeah, so I think that's important. That's an important part of the university experience is suddenly being able to interact with all these other people and get their view on life. So having that diversity in the book, um it's almost like it has to be there.
Yes. Because if it wasn't there, you've got then a very alien representation of what is supposed to be a very inclusive environment.
Mhm. Because that's one of the things there, like Strixhaven isn't an exclusive university. They're there to teach magic. There's a school of mages. Like if you want to come and you want to be a mage, the doors are open. um unless you manage to royally set up and get expelled. I assume
That
being,
is possible.
yeah, I was gonna say
If,
being expelled's got to be an option.
well, yes, because there are exams that you have to take. So you can, if you keep fluffing your exams, there are repercussions.
Oh, you gotta buckle down and study, everybody. Get your highlighters out or your notes. Um, and whatever else people do when they study for tests. I did that a lot. And now
You just highlight every line, and then you just have a book that's entirely highlighted, and you're like, I don't know which bit's important.
oh, I bought a used textbook once that was like that. I'm like, are the orange bits important, or are the bits in any other color important? Because literally every line is highlighted. I'm sure whoever it was had a system. It was just, um, yeah, no. So outside of having just worked on, um, done a fair bit of other work. Um, can't go into detail. Kind of pivot. What else have you worked on
Um,
recently-ish that you want to?
so I did a little bit of work on Van Ripton's Guide to Ravenloft.
Mm,
I did some consultation on that, especially the psychology of Strahd's victim profile, because it was really important to make sure that people understood that Strahd is a monster.
absolutely.
He's not a tragic hero in the way that he perhaps been represented in the past. He's a predator, and I mean that in every sense of the word. So I did that. I've got a number of things in the wonderful land of NDA that I'm working on. I've just got a contract for another. Be working on an adventure for a big publisher.
Ooh.
In fact, there's some work that I did pre-pandemic for a major publisher on it's going to be a big release for them, but unfortunately, due to pandemic, it's been stuck. So I'm hoping maybe next year, maybe the year after, it'll come out. But
Yeah, I'm sure we all know how that is at this time. Yeah, I have work that'll be it will be releasing. Yep, it will be
yes,
in the future. Um, because it has not released yet, and I sorry, I have a piece here that's doing something. Um, but yeah, no, but yes, I mean you have a lot of stuff that you've been working on very recently that you can't talk about, obviously.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't know. Um, but um, so about um, so when you're sitting down, we'll talk about the actual design process. Talk
Okay.
freely about this. When you're sitting down to do your design work, like obviously you've got a lot of focus on you know, you've been doing a lot of work on character stuff, motivations. Where do you draw your inspiration from when you're doing stuff? How do you make interesting three-dimensional characters?
So the way that they've been presented is less their internal monologue and more what other people you might have heard about them from other people. So straight away that lends a greater sense of realism.
That is
But
how we learn
the
about people.
yes, you don't normally get a sheet of paper with my hopes and dreams, and then you read it, and then you know who that person is. That's not normally how that works. Um, for me, it was a combination of I'd got some existing art to work from, but some of the characters were having pieces of art written for them based on my descriptions. So in some cases, I've got art, and you're looking at that, how the characters holding themselves, what they are literally doing, how they're dressed, how their general demeanor is, and you're able to draw something from that. In other cases, it's drawing on little bits of information and quirks from people you know.
Mhm.
So there's one of the characters is an elf, and his name is Cadras. And the reason he's named Cadras is because that was the name of a friend of mine's character who I was his first GM. Unfortunately, he lost his life just before I started working on this project. So I knew for a fact I was going to be naming something after sort of one of his in homage. So
Oh,
the character of sorry,
that's so sweet.
yes. So the character of Cadras is pretty much based on him, including one of his particularly odd eating habits. So I would be running D&D for him every week for the rest of my group, and everybody would bring snacks. That's
And he would
fairly
have
standard.
snacks in his pockets.
No, he would bring a large jar of pickled onions. And during the game, he would, I bring a large jar, and he would take the top off it, and
I'm
he
just
would,
so appalled at this.
he with a fork, whilst we're gaming for a 4 hour session or whatever, with a fork, eat the entire jar of pickled onions over the session. No, wait.
Oh,
Don't be too horrified. It steps up, and at the very end of that, after he'd finished the last
would
pickled
drink it.
onion, he would drink the remaining vinegar every session.
That sounds particularly disgusting to me because I can't eat anything that's pickled. It makes me very ill. So I'm just like imagining this, and it just really makes me want to retch.
So, but yes, so that little thing of his made its way into the book.
So the okay, so the characters. I'm gonna just dab my tears here, laughing so hard. All right, so we have the opportunity to interact with a character who loves pickled onions.
Yes.
I don't know that my character and that one will get along well, but um, because after all, aren't all of our characters a little bit of a self-insert every now and again? It depends.
Yes.
Not every single. Yes, only the ones who screaming recklessly into battle. Ones who stop and think logically about things. Those are not me. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. About half and half. Um, but no, that's actually a marvelous way to get character inspiration. Obviously, drawing from the people that you know, stealing your friends' D&D characters, and just putting them in something and being like, you're going to be so excited, and then they're like, this isn't at all what they would do, and I'd be like, okay, maybe you're less excited than I thought, but whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
I have had that happen before. Um, Portrayed character. I don't think that's. I was like, any name and similarities are happens.
Yeah.
Maybe this is what someone thought your character would act like from their previous direction.
In this multiverse version of this character,
In
that is how
this
they would act.
in this timeline, yes, the pruned timeline. Everybody, it's real. Although, um, arguments there are pruned. Yes, they were. Um, Timeline. Uh, I have eaten far too much very recently. But yeah. Well, when you don't have artwork and you're not stealing your friends' characters, um, how do you choose?
I think it's finding one thing,
Okay,
just one idea that you can build a character around. Now,
is
the
that
important thing to note is not have that be all the character is.
right? Because then they're very flat.
Incredibly flat, one note, and potentially stereotypical.
I think we could probably go beyond potentially. Like if they're one thing only, chances of it being a stereotype are very high,
So,
because you want it to be something relatable, and
yeah.
stereotypes are relatable.
So this was a big concern for me working on this project because I've got 18 NPCs
That's a lot
and
of
they
characters to create.
that's a lot of characters and they have to represent a huge wide variety
Mhm.
of people. But I am a white cis het man.
Yes.
So I'm writing all of these characters and I will do so with great care and attention and second guess myself all the time to make sure that these characters are real people and not some clumsy one note stereotype. But with the best will in the world, these aren't my lived experiences.
Correct.
So I can only approach it with care and a genuine desire to be truthful within the character and to not generate offense. But when I did my turnover, I have to say I was very, very worried that through unconscious bias, there was going to be content in there that people would find offensive. So I handed that over to Amanda, and it was passed along to the sensitivity readers, who are incredibly important and doing a very, very important job to make sure that the content is suitable for everybody.
Yes, they do amazing work.
And I was incredibly happy that when they had been through their passes and they came back, there were, in fact, no notes.
But that's a good sign.
Which was, yes, which was fantastic. I was very happy because I was, again, worried that I had put something in that I hadn't been aware that I had.
Mm-hmm. And I think that goes the fact that you had that concern, um, telling and the fact that you took great care to avoid these things. So you know that's generally what you want is someone to recognize and it, when you're looking for a design or anything, recognize that like, hey, I can write it, but like, I don't have the lived experience. Can
Mm.
we run it by someone who does because I can't know what I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
And I much prefer anyone that attitude towards diverse characters to be like, I'm certain I got this right, and I'd be like, okay, you the straight white man are certain you've got the characterization correct on the queer black woman. How? How? But I think especially as we're going into seeing a lot more of that diversity in our games and everything, it's very important to have it there. Like that's an important point to have. Is that writing characters needs to become kind of a bit of a team effort,
Yes.
and
Uh,
honestly, it always should have been.
so there's another thing. So some of the art, we have various characters who are people of color
Yes.
throughout the art. And the way they've been illustrated suggests that those individuals represent real world demographics. So rather than give these characters generic fantasy names,
Mm-hmm.
what we try to do is make sure that the characters were named within the naming convention of the ethnicity that those characters appear to belong to. And I did reach out to other people and be like, this is outside my area of expertise. I don't want to just do random sort of Googling, because it's very easy to take a name and try and make it a fantasy version of that name by changing a couple of letters. But then suddenly it doesn't mean, or it means something different or offensive, or the tonal change means that it's no longer representative of that group. So with a couple of those, we did sort of go out and get another couple of people to
And
have a look at them as well.
yeah, um, name names are hard. Names are
Yes.
probably one of the most frustrating things I deal with when I'm writing. To the extent that I think all three of the most recent people that I've partnered with on a writing project have now made the joke that um, Jenny just pawns off names on the other person, which is true. It's true. I'm sorry and thank
Yeah.
you.
No, naming a character is difficult because you've got to try and have a name that suits the character, that doesn't just sound trite, or it's a repetition of something else. Or in some other cases, it's actually an IP name from your hindbrain from a book that you read 15 years ago and you don't remember that that was where it was from.
Yeah, it's just come to you out of nowhere from the depths
Yeah.
of your mind, and someone's like, "Hey, that's the meaning of this," and you're like, "Oh fuck, oh it
Yeah.
is." Well, all right, back to the drawing board then. I yes, that is me, and I do that frequently. Because I've read so much in my life that I'll come up with a great name, and then I'll be like, "Ah, yes, that's a Jane Austen character," and I'm like, "No, you're right, you're right, right. All of these characters are secretly from Wuthering Heights. It's fine." um, skip around. It's not a great idea to give all of your characters uh
No,
I mean, it
they've
wasn't
also got to be easy to say,
well, yeah.
because if they're going to be, you know, in the case of these NPCs, if you're going to be continuously interacting with them, if the GM is every time having to pick up the piece of paper and read the name to sound the name out, then it's not a good name.
I mean, we have a bunch of names, like in Van Richten's even, who are not easy to remember or
No.
pronounce. And then you, of course, have your generic fantasy names from that as well. So Van Richten's is actually a spot to get like a good overarching view of great names and some bad names throughout D&D
Yeah.
history. Like the number of people that I've heard who just can't pronounce Tatiana, which I didn't think was a difficult one, but nonetheless, um,
No, I will, when I sort of come up with a name, I'll say it a few times and try and see if there's an easy way to make it sound rude or stupid. And they'll be like, yeah, that doesn't work. Especially, my characters in my games, because the other players will just immediately resort to some vulgar nickname for the character rather than the full one.
yeah, really bad about giving my D&D and then giving a secondary name. Um, I realized that like, oh gosh, I don't want to say this every time.
Yeah. Especially with elves or gnomes.
Yeah, they've got their common name and their, and their actual name, their given name.
Well, one of the NPCs is a gnome, and I will say that I love all of them equally, except that she's possibly my favorite.
Is she a
Um,
forest gnome?
she is not a forest gnome. Her name is Rosie Miffenbip was Fedlands.
And she's not a forest gnome. Huh.
And
Rock.
she's called that primarily because I could have a character called Rosie Miffenbip was Fedlands, and nobody stopped me. So, but she's referred to as Rosie within the adventure.
Yes, yes, Rosie. Naturally. Um, like my gnome, Bippy.
Yeah.
Nobody ever says the full name unless she's in trouble. In which case, sorry, she's gotta go all of a sudden. Bye.
Is that when like your parent shouts your full name from across the house,
Oh,
and
then
then you know that you're in trouble? You know you're
you're
in
in
trouble
trouble.
there. Yeah.
If they get the first and the last name, you're like, uh-oh. But if they throw in the middle name, done something now.
Yeah. Especially I've got quite a long name, so when it got shouted, it was quite a lot of shout.
Yeah, and it would be the only time that that your parent, if you multiple children in the house, when your whole name would be the only time they'd get the correct child the first time. Normally, if they don't know who exactly is in trouble, they start yelling until they finally settle on the right name.
My grandfather, I was his eldest grandchild, and he never called me by my correct name once. And in fact, what he would do, he would say sort of like Harry, George, and he would just come down a list of names and then settle on you. I'd be like, yes, granddad, and and that was the thing that he did. So yes, like I would get called 7 names, none of which were mine or any of his other grandchildren.
Okay, that's an interesting take on it.
Yeah.
We would just go through every name in the family, a large family, and then oh, but I was the oldest girl child of my generation. So I would normally get the names of people much older than my older cousins, aunts and uncles. Be like, none of them are me. Until they would eventually get to my grandmother's name, in which I'd be like, that is me.
Yes.
Um, pick one, either grandmother, it's still me. Um, same naming convention as people do for your characters. Pick a couple of people that you love and just part of their name and just smush them together.
Yes.
Um, although, um, you know, I don't know, like their own name. But naming aside, um, I think that you've got that that's that go out there, find the right culture, you find the right thing, you research the meaning, you put a lot of
Mm.
effort
Yes.
into naming your characters. Like you're not gonna name someone who is like, out there like a tradesman working with the hands and everything, something that means like, you know, I don't know, soft hands. I-
Unless, of course,
Unless of course
because there
it's
was there was a there's a naming convention in Britain where you would call children after virtues or ideals that you wish that child to embody. So it could be in that specific case, I would, if their parents had wanted them to break away from the family business, better themselves, and perhaps that name was to sort of ask the gods to provide some support that they would be able to better themselves from their subsistence life,
okay.
but only if it made sense within the background.
Right, right, right. I believe that's why we have so many purity and girl names. Um, and I don't know. I can't think of a similar one for.
Uh, Justice. Uh,
No, I only know one person named that. Very lovely person, but nonetheless.
yeah.
Um, Timothy. No, that's just a name. Um, I don't know. I don't really know male names that have to do with virtues.
No, a lot of them are feminine sounding.
Odd, odd how that works out. Um, yeah. All right. So, um, the next that you want. But how about a hypothetical project? So, that's what we have to do with people who come on here who can't talk about the stuff that they're actually doing. What would be um your dream project work on, and what would you want to do for it? Want to,
Um,
do something by yourself? Do you have like a team that you want to work with? Adventure book, setting book, NPCs, a whole adventure path.
I am, because of my day job, uh,
Very busy.
so very, very busy, especially because I spend a lot of time flitting between the States and the United Kingdom, which means that I am jet lagged a lot of the time. So that, that doesn't help. So, as much as I would love to write my own campaign setting book,
Not really
trying
in
to
the
find the
cards.
time. Well, you say that. I've actually been working on it with a couple of people already in small ways over the last couple of years. It needs a lot more work, but the framework is there. So because of that, I think I'd probably be better off sort of working on big projects, but only small parts. So, writing adventures or back matter. Um, there is a, I'm hoping that there are certain campaign settings by Dungeons and Dragons that they want to
That
work on
haven't yet been
that haven't yet
released,
been
that
announced.
already exist, which kind of
Yes,
narrows it down. There's only
which
so
so
many.
I would, yeah, I would very much like to work on one particular one, and in fact have
There's settings that I would love. Um,
written some stuff. I'm hoping that if somebody sort of asks, I'm there like, I've got some ideas
yeah,
already.
yeah. Um, I, I, uh, I would be fine. Um, never seen Greyhawk. again, like I have no sentimental attachment to that setting. Um, I would my shit if someone, "Hi, would you like to write a bunch of Dragonlance adventures?" I'd be like, "Me?" Um, yes. But then I would also internally be like, "You cannot just write the novels."
Well, I mean, that's what people think of with
I know
Dragonlance.
that was
It's the Dragons of Water and Twilight and the original
yeah,
trilogy.
but I would you'd have to write like like an adventure that's like a spiritual successor to the novels or something like
Yeah,
that. It also
because that's difficult because if you're following like the storyline, then you'd be the B team, and you're not Raceland, you're not Gold Moon. It's yeah, that'd be a difficult one to try and
I wouldn't think that you want to use any of the core characters though, which does make it hard when you're dealing with established properties where like
yeah.
there are characters that everyone knows. Like they're like, all right, write Dragonlance, but don't use any of the established characters. You're like, and then Dragonlance, like can like when you say none of the established characters, does that mean like none of the established humanoid characters? Can we
Yeah.
use the dragon? Like, yeah, that is an interesting point when you're thinking of established campaigns. I would also be fine not seeing Dark Sun, all the problematic content there.
I mean, Dungeons and Dragons they're very good at identifying problematic content and go, this was written from another time. It's not really suitable now.
Yeah,
And either wholesale changes need to be made or that can just sit on a shelf and it's fine. We
yeah.
don't need to go back to it.
I know a bunch of people who would be delighted to go back to um Athos there. But yeah, you do have to. I mean, anyone who loves that content, you have to admit that like there's a lot of problems. Nothing that couldn't be solved.
No.
By ripping a whole chunk of it out and throwing it in the bin. Let's not use that. Um, but yeah, so there's a lot of old settings that I really love. I really adore. Um, uh, especially things where you do D&D in space. Um, Dan, is this Spelljammer confirmed? Dan. Dan is the one who usually says that.
Yeah, I don't think at the time we're recording this, they haven't said it out loud. However, we did see on the Unearthed Arcana the GIF race had gone into playtest.
Yes, but those were kind of mentioned, and they have been brought up several times. So you have a GIF in the Icewind Dale book,
Mm.
Rime of the Frost Maiden, who wait, now I'm trying to remember if it's in the book or if the one I'm thinking of First League storyline. Um, I think both. They crash landed um while they were chasing some Illithid. I think both. I have a difficult time remembering hardcover in which is organized play storylines. It's a real problem. Not really. Um, but yeah, so you have got that there, and then with that, a lot of people got very excited. And then they did. They had an Unearthed Arcana. So in theory, that means that if that playtest went well, we should be seeing that in some content in the future. What that actually means, of course, Half-Life 3 is going to be out soon. That jazz. I read a news article recently. Half-Life. Like, oh yeah, is that so? We've been saying this my entire life.
Yeah.
So, when fly. So, covers work. Uh, um. Oh. Okay. Well, could ramble incoherently for a while more, but
That's one of my specialties.
yes. Um. But we are at the end of our time, actually. So if you don't mind, could you tell everyone where they can find you online, contact you, dance with you, whatever it is.
The best place to find me is on Twitter, TA_Stangroom. And I can be reached there. I spend far too much time on Twitter. So, yeah.
Far too much time in you. You don't spend time on Twitch.
No, I don't. Because I'm too busy working. Away from social media, the best place to find me in the real world is at conventions where I will be sort of in and around the Kobold Press booth.
All right, so next convention coming up, uh PAX, and then you're not doing anything for a while after that.
Ooh, PAX Unplugged, Gary Con,
Yeah, Gary.
Gamer Hall Con, Gen Con. Might be doing Dragon Con next year.
Just a bunch of cons, you know. So if you want to see, yes, Alexander and the rest of Cobalt team, or at least part of the Cobalt team, depending on the convention, go to the convention. Go to the booth. Say hi. Buy a book.
Actually, I'll also be DMing at D&D in a castle next year as well.
Buy a book, and more importantly, get your little Swobald mini and paint it. So that
while stocks last.
Yes, so that I don't feel obligated to paint mine. Well, when stocks, yeah. Are those limited or are you not doing more?
No, so Effin Cool Miniatures, who are the people who have the Cobalt Press license, they used to work in metal and they've now bought a fantastic new plastic injection molder. And the first miniature that they ran off was the Swall Bolt for us. So once we run out of giveaways at the booth, they will be available to buy at the Effin Cool web store.
Oh, okay. Well, then go and get yours quickly while they're free at purchase so that everyone else can buy them. Boom. Problem solved. There. Then everyone can buy one. It'll be yours for the price of whatever it cost. I imagine, I don't know, a mini's usually like anywhere between $5 to $10 plus shipping.
Some monies.
Yeah, monies. If you're in this hobby, it would be what is known as an sum of money comparatively other stuff. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again for being on the show today and sharing some insight into the upcoming Strixhaven book, as well as all of the other delightful stuff that you've done. And let you get back to all of the exciting other work that you have to do since you're so busy. But thank you again so much for being on. I have a lot of other upcoming guests soon. Trying to pull out my notebook. I've been traveling, so my desk is in disarray. Yeah. I don't know. I apparently don't have it down here. But yeah, we'll be talking to more people. We have Christmas upcoming, so we can break for that. You can find me down in Atlanta, in December for MomoCon Winterfest, 2-day little short just get everyone back together because it's been far too long. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And then my next convention will be Winter Fantasy, in February, which is still a decent ways off now, so you have time to get your hotel room and make arrangements to come hang out in the snow. Usually snows. Very exciting. And the Roomba has started, so that's my cue to go and get back to my day job. So thank you again, Alexander. And that's it for this episode. I understand.